AskReddit by a big fat lesbian. What is way more common than people realize? Professional incompetence. On all levels, from cashiers at McDonald's to nuclear scientists. The difference is in how the organization handles and mitigates failure. I was a nuclear machinist in the US Navy. They took the top 3% of applicants, and half of those failed the schooling, and there were still some astoundingly smart people with astonishingly poor common sense and general intelligence who made it through. Our society lives on because the actual designers built some clever and hefty fail-safes into the design of naval nuclear reactors, not because all of the operators are intellectually qualified lol. Not having any friends when you're older. After you graduate college, especially if you move to a new city for a job, it's hard to maintain friendships. And it's definitely hard to get new friends once you're in the adult world working every day. Many people's only friend is their spouse. And if they aren't married, many people just don't have any friends. That's me right now. It's incredibly lonely. I don't have a relationship or family here. It's hard to connect with people. Edit. Thank you for the suggestions. People who don't wash their hands after using the restroom. Honestly, it's just good to wash your hands periodically regardless, and after using the restroom is good as a re-up on that as much as anything else. Signs reminding people to wash their hands frequently aren't just some weird thing to nag children. Alcoholism. There are many more functional alcoholics or recovering than people would guess. I saw this during the pandemic. My friend worked for the city in public health. It was her job to ensure liquor stores and beer distributors remained open and functioning. It was a public health initiative. If the liquor stores closed, they're all state run here, there would have been a large health crisis, simply because there are so many functioning alcoholics that are a few missed drinks away from serious withdrawal, which can be fatal. Miscarriage. The Mayo Clinic says up to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage, which is already a lot. This is obviously heartbreaking for wanted pregnancies, but can be difficult for unwanted pregnancies too. But in addition to that 20%, many people miscarry before they learn they are pregnant. While not distressing in the same way of knowingly having a miscarriage, it's distressing for many people because of an seeming inability to get pregnant. When I got pregnant, my grandma told me that she felt for women now that we found out so early. When she was having babies, you had to miss 2 periods before seeing the doctor. If you started your period, you just called and cancelled. I mean, you know, better healthcare now. But I get her point. More people than you would think do coke recreationally. This is one that surprised me growing up. Seems more people do coke than smoke weed at my age. Feeling lonely. Even if you're married with kids etc. Relationships and kids can even make it worse. It's hard to find time for friends and hobbies when you need to spend all your time with your family or at work. Credit card debt. 45% of Americans carry a credit card balance from one month to the next. Yep. Currently have loads of debt and it's like carrying a boulder on my back every day. Depressing. The number of people being left behind by services going digital. They come into the library where I volunteer to find help. Not only do some of them not have email addresses, and most of the ones who do rely on the computer remembering their passwords, a significant number don't even have mobile phones. One of my local friends is a librarian, and she says one of her tasks that she never expected was helping people navigate the government. She's become quite the whiz at finding the right phone number or website that people need to receive services. Picking noses. Scratching buttholes. Yes, most people's fingers do horrible things. Not me though, shame on all of you. I wish there was a better way to pick my nose. Blowing simply doesn't clear all the nooks and crannies up there, and I feel like I'm constantly having to wrestle with booger situations. So I gotta go digging with the finger, but that's rude, gross, and usually still kinda bad at what I want to achieve. Isn't it the future? Why don't we have space-age nose-picking technology yet? Low self-esteem. I don't know how many times I have seen people not invite, include, or initiate something with someone for fear of rejection or the other person finding them annoying, and then the other person feels rejected from not being included. A lot of people think they are more annoying or unlike than they actually are. This is such a good point. Thank you. People being ashamed of things they like. Pro wrestling, tabletop games, types of media, anime, reality TV, etc. People are way more insecure about people getting a peek at their true selves than people realize. Also, people being ashamed of things they need. I'm thinking hearing aids and glasses in particular. My dad really needs some hearing support and he's the only one now who doesn't acknowledge it. People popping pills to barely function. Also, people doing random drugs pills all the time. A family friend's brother would just ask what kinds of medication people had and if he could try it. He did the same with recreation drug users, too. The amount of people with huge amounts of debt. Every time you walk past someone in the street, nearly 50% of them will carry significant credit card debt that they haven't previously paid off and is carried over. With how high some credit card interest rates can be, these credit card companies must be making a fortune. My financial advisor told me one of his clients, no names, has an income of $330K, but credit card debt of $150K. The monthly interest alone must be crazy. Herpes. Huge numbers of sexually active people are carrying latent dormant herpes and don't realize it. It's by far the most common STI out there and they don't even bother testing unless you have symptoms. Imposter syndrome. No one knows what we are doing. We are all just winging it. Most of us are hoping that asking questions and being nice will get us there. My mum told me when I was around 18, she was mid-40s then, that she still didn't feel like an adult and essentially that she was also just winging it. It was so crazy to me then, that there is no such thing as an adult. The concept is a scam. There's only experience and the ones that learn from it but nothing more. Almost 10 years later and I get it. I don't feel like an adult, just like myself. Which is fine by me. And while it's not really so crazy that there isn't anything point where you just get life, it is crazy how hard it is to let go of this lie that I've told myself for almost 20 years. Mental health problems. I sincerely believe the US is, and has been for decades, going through an unbelievably massive mental health crisis. Sexual assault. There are a lot more very kinky people doing very kinky things than you think. Seriously. Most people just have no idea. Disproportionate amount of early childhood teachers, at least from what I know. Hoarding. People see the TV show and think those are isolated incidents. But ask your local fire and EMS providers, and watch the horror creep across their faces. I've been in houses where you couldn't actually touch the floor, you walked on top of the debris. Houses where the door they use is the only door or window in the entire residence that can be opened. Houses where we had to station firefighters every couple feet along the path through the mess, and load the patient onto a mega mover, basically a heavy duty sheet with grab handles on the sides, and pass her person to person out the door. It is way more prevalent than you can even imagine. Being killed by a medical mistake in a hospital. My mother. Killed by medical mistake. My brother. Killed by medical mistake. Train derailments. When the wreck in East Palestine happened, a whole lot of people acted like this was just unheard of. I work in an industry that's heavily affected by rail, and let me tell you, it's very common. We are impacted by derailments a few times a month at least. Drunk high driving. According to the CHP, at any given time, 1 in 8 drivers is impaired. However, after 2 AM, when bars close in California, it's 1 in 4. This was from training from about 20 years ago, no idea if it's still accurate. Amicable divorces. I think people just don't talk about them as much because there's not much to say. Oh, you got divorced? What happened? Well, we both agreed that we weren't happy despite caring for each other and we split things evenly. Now we're both happier. Just isn't much story there. Illiteracy among high school graduates. College professor here. I'm pretty sure a non-negligible number of my students are functionally illiterate or have a reading comprehension level of a middle schooler. Things are just getting worse.